Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, a podcast where we deconstruct difficult decision making to try to figure out what keeps us stuck, but more importantly, how do we get unstuck? I'm your host, Karen Covey, a former divorce lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator turned coach, author, and entrepreneur. With me today, I have Jennifer Urezzio, and Jennifer is an intuitive business strategist who created a tool called Soul Language. She has close to 20 years in the personal development and spiritual growth field. As a gifted intuitive and healer, Jennifer has devoted her life to helping others discover their unique, essential nature, embrace their true essence, and create strategies for success. Jennifer's podcast, Asked and Answered by the Soul, ranks in the top 3% of podcasts worldwide with a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Jennifer is also a TEDx speaker, and she has been called liquid nitrogen for the soul. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I didn't know I had a 5-star rating, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Love that.
And I have to start in an unusual place, or maybe it's not so unusual, but why are you called liquid nitrogen for the soul?
Because I get to problems very quickly, very easily, that people have been working on in therapy for years. So when we work with the soul and we work with your body's divine intelligence, it does a lot of the heavy lifting versus talk therapy, um, which can be going round and around and around the patterns and programming. And we just work with your soul to kind of smooth out those rough edges of patterning so you can make a different choice, a more sustainable choice.
So, all right, I have to ask you, how do you do that?
I do that by identifying a person's 3 core energies of soul. And then we work with that connection to answer questions and really show a person where they are believing a lie because of an experience or they're living in pain. Listen, our experiences are real, but we have a lot of emotional attachment and non-neutrality around them. And so they become the governing force of how we use our energy versus really using our energy from pure consciousness, which is unstoppable freight train of goodness.
Wow, I love how you put that unstoppable freight train of goodness. And I know that you work, what's interesting to me and fascinating about what you do is that you take soul energy, which, with all due respect, it sort of lives in the woo, right? And you apply it to business.
Yeah.
Like those two do not seem to go together to me. How does that work?
I believe, and the people I work with do believe, and have seen the experience of it, that we call in a business a, a soul of a business, energy of a business to do something bigger first for ourselves and then for others. It's pure consciousness. And when you add goodness into that pure consciousness, it expands. Most of us operate from adding pain and programming into our business. And we can make this really tangible for a moment. If you and I are in a relationship and we've had some friction and I keep acting the same way, that friction is going to keep reproducing itself. You're going to keep acting a certain way. If I choose to make another decision, that gives you the opportunity to do something different because you have free will. With our business, it doesn't really give it an opportunity. It reacts because it doesn't have free will. It's just energy. So when we really decide what we want to put into our business in a form of love, consciousness, completeness, it will expand and it will act that way. Most of us put our pain in programming. So it crumbles or you don't get the clients you want or you get the clients you want but you're because you've acted from a place of lack, they're scutchy or they want their money back or there's a problem or you're feeling undervalued. It's very tangible woe because I'm a warrior, so if you can't integrate it into your everyday life, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. So, anyone who's listening to this would say, what do you mean I bring my pain and problems into my business? Like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm intending to do. How is it that, in spite of our best intentions, we end up bringing old patterns, old problems, our pain into the business? And how can we not do that?
Well, the first step is really understanding where you're doing that, because I think most people, it's so automatic that they don't. There are four energy leaks in a business. There's the energy leak of money, how you feel about your talents, how you feel about yourself, and what I call making war with the business, in conflict with it. So you have to understand where those energy leaks are happening, and then you have to pause. Right. And you have to be in the consciousness of the solution. That's Jennifer Bloom saying. Right. So if you're going to come from a place of consciousness and you're whole and complete, what would you say? What would you do then? So we'll use money because it's a very easy one. I
Mhm.
think most people undervalue themselves, right? So they have to have that sales conversation. And this is what goes in their head when they're acting unconscious. Oh my God, I don't want to talk about the money. What are they going to think? What are they going to say? Maybe they don't have the money. Are my worth value? How am I going to prove I'm worth that value? You see all that?
Mhm.
So in that situation, you can undervalue yourself by doing a low bid. You could over service a person or do both, right? Or you could go, when I did one time, which was famously, is I was doing a discovery slash sales session with someone and they're like, I'm like, oh, so you could work with Karen or you can work with Susan or you can work with, Greg. And finally the person went, I don't think you understand that I would like to work with you. I was literally telling them different people that they could work with because I was operating from I'm not enough. Right?
Mhm.
Now I go, would you like to hear how I can support you? If they say yes, I move forward and I leave it go. And it's neutrality. I'm not in my head about making decisions for them. I know I'm loved, supported, and provided for. So if it's not this interaction, it will be another interaction. They're not the resource for me. They're not the source for me, rather. They're just a resource of source.
I love that because I know so many business owners struggle with sales and their conversation goes a lot like what you just said.
Yeah.
So, how does somebody go about making that shift to get out of their head and into the place where you are, where you can say, you're just a resource, you're not the source. If it's not you, something else will come. How
Yeah.
do you achieve that level of, I don't know if you call it confidence or freedom or whatever you want to call it?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's also a deep knowing of that I'm loved, supported, and provided for. So we use our body a lot to activate something. That's not an affirmation, it's actually an activation. So it activates the cell. So I would start to tell everyone to take a deep breath, focus on your tailbone, close your eyes. You want to try this?
Yes, yes, I'll try it with you.
Close your eyes, and you're going to repeat after me, Karen. Divine intelligence,
Divine intelligence,
fill my body
fill my body
with the feeling and knowing
with the feeling and knowing
that I'm safe
that I'm safe
to claim my worth.
to claim my worth.
And just tell me what you notice in your system.
Um, I don't know. I felt something up in my head, in the front of my head. I don't know
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. And if you notice when you watch the video, you moved back and you straightened up a little, right?
Ah,
So
okay.
if you keep saying that, what's going to happen is the programming is naturally going to change because we're using your body to tell your cells to do something different. And it will actually change the decision process you make. So, in not that this is your problem, but in this case, right, the person will go, oh, well, how much are your fees? And instead of hemming and hawing, they'll go, oh, it's this. And they'll be like, oh my God, did that just happen? I just came out of my mouth because you're breaking the loop, you're breaking the record that has been on auto and you're putting something new. And so your cells will respond and then the rest of you will come along.
I love this. And I can see how it would work so well in business, but the universe that I play in most of the time is relationships, right? Does this same philosophy, the ideas, do they also apply in personal relationships like marriage?
Yeah, because you're in a relationship with everything on this planet, right? Right. And so if you're in an intimate relationship and you are operating or you're experiencing that relationship through your family of origin trauma, through your limiting beliefs, you're going to keep acting the same way. But if you know that you're safe to be vulnerable, you get to do, or say something different. Now, here's the catch. The catch is once you establish that you're safe to be vulnerable, you have to really determine if that relationship works for you. And so often, when we're working from pain and programming, we choose partners that really don't, but are just reinforcing the pain and programming. The ideal situation is as you change in your consciousness, you offer that opportunity for your partner to change with you, and then you'll grow together, right?
Mhm.
But if you're in relationship with something like a narcissist, you the all the inner work that you can do works for you, but it doesn't work in changing that relationship because that person is mentally ill, right? And so yes, it works in intimate relationships where people want to grow together, but it will also work allowing you to choose better intimate relationships that correspond with the truth in you that you are enough, that you are worthy of relationships, that you deserve to be seen and heard and loved completely.
Yeah, I love that. And what I hear you saying too is that the person that you are changing, the person who is growing, is yourself. And if your spouse decides to come along in for the ride or not, because
Right.
your spouse has free will, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
so often when I'm in conversation with, especially if I'm doing relationship work with someone, they'll be like, "Well, Joe said this." And I'm like, "It's not about Joe." And they're like, "Well, I'm like, "You can have a whole conversation with Joe in your head, but it's not about Joe. It's about you. How do you feel? What do you want to do? What do you want to change?" Right? And then often people don't do that because they're afraid of what will happen if they do change, right? But when you know that it's greener on the other side, that gives you a bit of a safety net to change with more ease and more grace.
well, how do people feel safe to change, to have that conversation? Are you saying safe within themselves or safe in the relationship? Because
Safe,
some people might not be.
right? Safe within yourself. And if you're really truly not safe in that relationship to change, then that's a relationship that you might want to consider getting out of, right? Like there's only so much that's going to expand. And when you're not safe to change in a relationship or evolve, where is the non-safety showing up as well in that relationship? And the next level can be very devastating of a non-safe relationship. Like that makes me nervous for that person.
Yeah, and I don't just mean safe or non-safe in a physical
Right.
sense, but it could be the lack of safety on an emotional level or on a financial level.
Yeah. And that's devastating as they're all non-safety in a relationship is devastating, right? When that person is the spouse of the person who's changing is putting out the non-safety in any way, that's a relationship that doesn't have a lot of movement in it, and that's a relationship where it's it's painful for that individual in every sense of the word.
Yeah, I agree, and I see that with so many people, but I also see people saying to me, "Okay, Karen, this doesn't make sense to me. How can you tell me that I will change without changing my spouse or my partner, the relationship is going to change? Don't I have to change that person?" What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, I would be good luck changing that person. I've never seen it happen. Second, I would say when you change, it's like you're giving the opportunity to the relationship to change its actual tune. And that allows the person in relationship to change that tune as well, because we are all operating from pattern. So if you keep doing the thing you're doing, that person is naturally going to keep playing the same song. If you're changing, that gives a person to do something different. I'll give you a very tangible example. So my mother is the soul language negotiator, which is a mission. She negotiates everything. My mission language is the equalizer. I'm about balancing everything. And I did a lot of internal changing. And I knew because my mother asked me to have her languages identified that she was a negotiator. And I came home and I was staying, I've been out of the house for like 20 years. I came home and I had this lipstick on and I came out of the bedroom I was staying in. My mother's like, "I hate that lipstick." Now, a long time ago, I would have been like, explode. Like, what do you like? You're always criticizing me. Blah, blah, blah. I just took a breath and I just paused. I went in and I went, I'm safe. No need to argue. No need to like create war here. And she said, let me tell you why I hate that lipstick. It's not because I hate it on you. I hate it because it reminds me of so and so. And I knew exactly who so and so was and why now she hates the lipstick because so and so was mean to her. Right. And so she had an opportunity to do something different because I paused and she took that opportunity.
I love that. I think it's beautiful. And I think there is power in the pause.
Yeah.
That if people can just in a relationship, you don't have to worry about how it's going to change or what if all you do is stop and pause and check your own emotional temperature, everything changes.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with that is if you have warrior energy like me, our first instinct for warriors is to like, okay, like let's, right. So that takes an even extra pause. Like, you don't have to make war here. Like, you don't have to take out your sword. You don't have to fight for what you want. And I think that happens in a lot of intimate relationships. Everyone's fighting for their needs to be met, but nobody has discussed their needs. So I have these friends, Maria and Val, who say all needs can be met when vocalized, right?
Ah,
And so often we don't even know what our needs are and we're not even vocalizing them. So, how can we get those needs met? First for ourselves internally, and then and the physical reality if nobody knows what they are.
yeah. And so it just, it's a beautiful reminder that all of the work, all of the, growth comes from inside of us,
Yeah,
and that it starts with looking at yourself, not your spouse,
no.
yourself.
You'll lose at that game looking at somebody else. You'll always lose. And there's no way out of that. There's no happiness path out of that because it there's nobody changes except for the internal, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's in charge of their own channel. Think of it as a broadcast network, right? We're on
Mhm.
our own channels. Right now, Karen, you're making a guest appearance on my channel. I'm making a guest appearance on your channel, but we're still on our own channels. And so often we think, right, we are someone else's channel on that broadcasting station and we're just doing cameos. So when you start to look at it that way, it becomes easier.
Yeah, I love that. We're just doing cameos and that it's really about our channel, right?
Right.
So you had mentioned before that a business has a soul. Does a relationship have a soul, or is it just the soul of the two people, souls?
No, it has a soul. And this is, I'm going to talk about a couple of friends of mine because it's fascinating. So when their energy comes together, their energy, that relationship energy is pioneering. They forge new roads for themselves and others. And so when you're around them, you're like, yeah, I could totally do that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's, right. And so they know how to use that energy consciously. If they're not using it consciously, it's like squirrel for them. Like, let's do this and let's do that. Nothing complete. So it gives you a deeper sense of why we're together and how we can utilize our energy to support ourselves and others. And it allows how sometimes a relationship or a couple is like glue, and how come sometimes a relationship has kinks in it because they're not utilizing that energy consciously, they're utilizing it as a misfire.
Yeah, and I think so many people, I don't know if that they can vocalize it in the way that you have, but they feel it. It's
Right.
like our energies just don't match up. They don't align.
Right.
So that's interesting. But the idea of how to use it, how can somebody figure out what the energy signature of a relationship is? Like sometimes you put two people together and it is like there's just fireworks in a good way or
Right.
fireworks in a bad way, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a combination of their soul languages. So usually it's probably they have languages in common, meaning they share languages together or the relationship energy shares a language. And that's a whole lot of consciousness to maintain. Sometimes it's energies that typically don't get along. Um, in a sense, like I'll give you an example. So there's a soul language that's a an axiom of quest, a mission language called matriarch patriarch. And there's a language called nurturer, which is the category about how you'll be known here, the fuel of your mission. Traditionally, matriarch patriarch is crone energy. It's very royal, it's very sage, and nurture is very mothering energy. And typically, unconscious matriarch patriarch looks at the nurturer and go, "You're so weak. We're going to keep nurturing these people. Like, come on. Like, let's all move forward. Like, haven't they learned everything? Like, why do we have to over nurture?" So traditionally, those energies feel a little at odds with each other, if not operating consciously. Warrior energy, and there's a bunch of soul languages with warrior energy, traditionally find those still energies like, come on, you're taking so long to make a decision. Let's move into action. So, unless those energies are being conscious together, it can feel a little push pull.
How do you become conscious of each other, or have the energies become conscious of each other?
It's really about understanding how you're utilizing your energy. I mean, we do a soul language identification. That's how we determine each one's soul languages, and you need to go to a practitioner for that. But if you kind of want to just play with it, you could just simply ask yourself, am I being conscious in my energy? And you'll feel a yes or no. And then you ask your soul, how can I move from pain to consciousness? And your soul will give you an answer. And then you take action on that answer.
Interesting. So you've been talking a lot about soul language. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I created a paradigm or a tool called soul language, which puts words to the three core energies of your soul, the soul of a business or the soul of a partnership. And the three core energies are mission, how you fuel that mission, and then your soulful personality. And when we identify those three energies, you get a also a one-liner of that soul, and that becomes your mild marker of consciousness. If you're not being and doing that, you're creating struggle. And you get definitions for your languages, and you get an understanding of when you're using it consciously and when you're using it in struggle, all on down on paper. And that's your jumping off part. So my languages are, my mission is called equalizer. It's all about creating that perfect formula of balance, first for myself and then for others. How I'll be known here is teacher of integrity. All of my life, I can see where people are out of the consciousness of love. I offer them the chance to get back in, which means back into balance, which means back into their manifestation power. And then my third language, which is the warrior language, is called graceful warrior, action, movement, courage, and grace. So my one liner is I create balance for myself and others through love, integrity, and courage. But if I'm not being and doing that, I'm creating struggle. I'm actually wrecking cars, creating chaos, falling. Like when I'm unconscious, I go big. I don't go small. And I know that, right? I know what that feels like to make war with things. And that's the opportunity to pause, connect with my soul and go, okay, how can I move from unconscious to conscious? What pain is keep repeating here? What do I need to accept that I'm whole and complete? And so then I get to shift that energy and move into consciousness.
Well, how do people, like, let's say there's a person out there listening and they say, okay, great. I don't know if I'm conscious or unconscious, and I don't know how to change it. What
If
would you
you're
say
in
to them?
pain or struggle, you're unconscious. If you're in flow and feeling great, you're conscious. And we dip in and out. It's a wave, right? But it's pretty clear when people are in struggle. If you're in struggle, you're not acting consciously. It's kind of that cut and dry, unfortunately.
Wow. And so let's say that somebody is in the struggle, their relationship is going down the toilet. Maybe if they're a business person, that's not going well. If they're a career person, that's not going well. Like everything seems to be going
Falling
to hell in
apart.
a handbasket, right? And they look great. Don't struggle. How am I supposed to not struggle?
So the first thing they want to do is they want to ground and center themselves. You can't manifest unless you're grounded to both to earth and sky. And the second thing they want to do is they want to keep activating safety. Divine intelligence, fill me with the feeling of knowing that I am safe. There are only three major limiting beliefs. All of them come down to three. I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy of love, or I believe love is conditional. So all struggle roots from that. Another thing that they can do is go, if I knew I was worthy, if I knew I was whole and complete, what would I say and what would I do here? They need to start changing how they feel and how they think little by little so the struggling subsides. And here's the thing, struggle is a good thing in this case because it lets you know that you're looking to experience more goodness. And so when you see struggle as like, oh, good, like I want to experience more here, you're not so like, let's make it happen. I need to move out of the struggle, right? A lot of people are in non acceptance of their struggle. They're trying to berate it, trying to change it, trying to eradicate it instead of going, okay, I'm going to pause and love myself and then take a step forward.
Yeah, I don't know very many people that are excited to be in the struggle.
I
I mean,
didn't say excited, I said in acceptance.
aha,
That's different. Non-acceptance is you're in London, you're in front of Big Ben, you have the tube map in front of you, and you're insisting you're in Paris. There's no way you're going to get to Paris if you don't accept that you're in London.
got it.
So it's much different than excitement. I'm not excited to struggle.
Yeah. And it's from what I'm hearing you say, it ebbs and flows. It's like there is no life without struggle. Like you don't get a free pass on this.
There's no life without separation at times. So
Okay.
struggle is separate. So you feel separate from whatever you call your higher power. Okay.
Okay.
You don't have to be in the, I used to struggle a lot. Like I used to go into funks. I used to be like, you know, stretching each dollar to make the next one work. Like that's not my experience anymore. Do I have bad days? Yes. Do I have worries? Yes. But I used to be so consumed with worry that I would be up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, please refrigerator go on because I cannot afford a new refrigerator. Like I would sit until I heard the refrigerator go on. That's crazy pants, right? Like, and I knew why that I was struggling around that, right? I don't do that anymore. So there's levels of struggle, but you're going to have challenges because you're in life and you're in a body. It's how we view that challenge. Most people view that challenge, whether they're conscious of it or not, that they have a challenge and they suck. I have a challenge because there's something wrong with me. No, you have a challenge because we all have free will and human beings are a mess. And when you see it like a more neutrality, you're like, oh, here's the solution for that.
Yeah, I think this is such an important conversation because so many
Mm,
of my clients, of people, when they're going through a divorce, they're in exactly that headspace. They're in survival. They don't know where, what the future's going to look like. Sometimes they don't know where their next dollar is coming from, or they feel like it. They even, what's interesting is even the clients who intellectually know there is plenty of money, they're going to be fine. They're still panicked that there won't be enough money.
yeah,
So how do they, what tips could you give to them to avoid the struggle or get out of the struggle that they're feeling? Because it feels really real.
it feels really weird because their body's in fear and flight.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the first thing you want to do is you want to calm down that nervous system because you can't change when the nervous system's like this. So you want to take a deep breath and you want to fill yourself with safety. You want to allow yourself to relax, even if it's just like doing an exercise. There's this guy named Dan, I can never remember his last name, who does this exercise called resting with your body now. So you could take a deep breath and go, I'm resting with my body now, or I'm resting for my body now. And your body will go, and then from there you can make changes. So if you're in fear and flight that bad, you want to work on just relaxing your nervous system. So when all the fear comes up, you want to take a deep breath, you want to relax. You want to take a deep breath and you want to relax. And then you can start making internal changes after the body starts to stop being in fear and flight all the time.
That makes a lot of sense. And talking about challenges, what's been your biggest challenges you've been on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, self-worth has been a huge challenge of mine. Um, Failure has been a huge challenge of mine. Like that's where I go when I'm in struggle. I'm like, oh, nothing's working. Oh, I suck. Right. So that's all. So I have a lot of tools for those. Um, I think traditionally love has been a big challenge of mine, like really like finding that person to love. It's not a challenge anymore. I'm happy to say, but it was, it took me 50, it took me almost till I was 44 to find that person who I really clicked with, who I could have a really loving, solid relationship with. I never thought that was going to happen. And I also thought, good, it happened. Now everything else is going to click in my life. And it didn't. Right. Like, but those have been big challenges, you know, uh, and it's built great content for me.
I was going to say, it sounds like every time some challenge comes up for you, it's like, oh, I need a tool for that. Oh, I need a technique for that. I need some way to guide other people
Yeah.
through those same challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I have a library of content. It's called Soul to Business, and it has over 100 tools in it because I do just that. There's something and I make a tool. There's something and I make a tool.
That's beautiful. So
Thank you.
let's say somebody is out there listening and they say, I want what she's having. I want those tools. Where can they find you?
Yeah, the best place is soullanguage.us. That's my website. You can see the virtual tools there. You can see a discovery session where I ID one of your soul languages as my gift. I'm on all of the social media under my name, except Instagram, where I am Soul Language Founder. And I'm willing to, I answer my own email and I pick up my own phone. So please feel free to reach out. Don't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning because you're going to get the high sleepy voice, but I don't want people to feel like they have a question and they can't ask that question. So feel free to like contact me if you have questions.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I appreciate this so much,
Thank
both
you.
in the context, of business and of relationships, because it all kind of overlaps and falls into each other. And especially when your relationship is changing, that's often the reason that you need a business or your business changes or everything changes all at once. So I think that the tips that you have shared really are going to help so many people. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor and I love chatting with you. So you made it so fun. So thank you.
You're welcome. It has been my pleasure. And if those of you out there listening have enjoyed what you've heard or watched, then I encourage you, please do me a big favor, like the video, like the podcast, subscribe to everything, everywhere, and all the places. And I look forward to talking with you again next time.